What do the analytics say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers through 7 weeks of the NFL regular season? That and more coming up on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or your first view today and every day. Don't forget that you can subscribe for free on YouTube or wherever you're getting your podcast. And you can follow me, your host, David Harrison, on Twitter at dharrison82. Credential member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers for BucsGameDay.com, where I am a staff writer in support of Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. Of course, Locked On Bucs is here with you every Monday through Friday, along with our everydayers. And as always, we want to share our appreciation to you for coming through for this episode. Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use a promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. On today's episode of Locked On Bucs, we're going to step inside the classroom because I feel like we're all going to learn at least a little bit of something as we speak to Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football analytics expert Sam Schwartzstein. All right, guys, we are now joined by Prime Video Thursday Night Football analytics expert Sam Schwartzstein. If you've been watching Thursday Night Football on Prime Video, you've seen him. It's a lot of great content going on in the regular broadcast, and of course, you've got the Prime Vision with Next Gen Stats as well. There's a lot that we can dive into about how analytics are being incorporated into football today, but essentially, or especially, what you, Sam, and Amazon and Prime Video are doing over there right now with the broadcast. It's great stuff. But initially, I do want to get your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, Locked On Bucs, we got to kick it off with some Bucs talk. Through 7 weeks, we got 6 games in the books. The loss to the Atlanta Falcons. Fans are frustrated. I think the teams are frustrated. Media is kind of looking for answers to tell these fans how things are going to get better. What did you see watching that Falcons game this last weekend?
Look, I saw a team that fought. And that's what you guys have been all year. I think, there's huge win probability shifts off of the Desmond Ridder fumble when Antoine Winfield was able to make an individual play there that gave you guys a shot to be back in this game. It could have been worse. There was another big play that you guys were able to have with Mike Evans down to the sideline. Those field shifting touchdowns, those are huge win probability shifts because win probability wants a team to be methodical going down the field. Those low probability plays really are huge shifts. And so there's clearly an ability to do that. I think got to be able to run the ball, especially for a team that wants to commit to it and play defense. And they're asking Baker Mayfield to be not the risk taker he used to be. And he's been great at that. But that takes a team that is going to have to run the ball even when the opponent knows it. And one of the worst teams, rush yards over expected, negative 140 plus rush yards under expected for what the Bucs are trying to do. So on the season. So I think, that game there have been almost always close games. They're fighting in every game, gives them an opportunity to win. But they're relying on the big play right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a metric? And I like the analytics that I like and that I know and that I understand, but I'm not even going to sit here with my audience and pretend that I'm to the level that you are. But is there any kind of fluctuation in the metrics or in the way that things are calculated when you come off of a very bad loss, right? So if I think we were to tell people the Atlanta Falcons are going to turn the ball over 3 times, Bijan Robinson's only going to play 6 snaps, have no touches. I think everybody says, oh, so the Buccaneers win by 3 touchdowns and have an easy afternoon. So coming off of a loss like this one, this is pretty bad. And then a short week going against Buffalo. Do the numbers account for anything coming off of something like this?
Outside of injuries, no. You're really going to have a tough time seeing a week-to-week drastic change because we are so situational on how teams line up, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to see a team that's going to not run the ball run the ball a lot in Atlanta and they commit to it, and then you're going to play the Buffalo Bills, and that's not what they do. Is Josh Allen going to be passing the ball around? They're not going to line up in the same personnel groupings that they're not going to line up in the pistol one time. So it's going to be really hard to say a comparative thing. I think that and then also turnovers are very, very rare when you think about the total accumulation of all plays. It's hard to say we're going to win the turnover battle every game. It's really hard to do. So there's no analytics to take your from a single game to be able to say, hey, this is going to affect the next game outside of if there's an injury.
Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of people seem to like about the growing use of analytics in the football community is you take some of the gut instinct out of it, some of the emotion out of it sometimes. But overall, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been a roller coaster for all the people who do have an emotional investment in this organization. Coming into the season, they really surprised a lot of people, went into their bye week sitting on top of the NFC South. Now they're second in the NFC South and 0-2 since their bye week. So through 6 games, Sam, kind of how do you see this Buccaneers team? And I'm actually interested to know, too, how do you see them compared to how you thought they were going to be entering the year?
I thought this team was going to struggle because Baker Mayfield did not play his best football. He had a couple years there in Cleveland where he was playing an extremely high level. We thought maybe he might have been, up there with Josh Allen from that draft class. But then he became too much of a gunslinger. We saw him too many times on TV and commercial breaks. And we're not seeing him anymore. And he's playing well. That's your analytic for you. If you do fewer commercials, you'll be better on the field. But he's really been able to change his game and focus on how do I be a ball control guy? I don't really call them game managers as much as I call them game executioners, because if you're given a good game plan, how can you execute? Guys like Brock Purdy, guys like Tua Tagovailoa, those players, that's the mold that Baker is being put in. But he's probably not being given as much scheme or as good of weapons across the board, especially in the run game, because both those other teams are huge in the run game, top of the league. And then this is one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL. And most has to do with the backs. We use an analytic called expected rush yards, which is a machine learning model built by Next Gen Stats to identify what an average running back would get in a similar situation. And the Buccaneers are the worst. So their backs are really hurting when this is an offensive line that, is playing much better than I expected. Gadecki has had a much better year at right tackle. Tristan Wirfs flipping sides. Very rare that a guy's able to do that. But that's it. My biggest thing with Baker Mayfield is there's only 2 quarterbacks that have positive EPA per dropback. That's expected points added. That's the building block metric for almost all analytics about how much are you helping your team's chance to score on a given dropback. Only 2 players, when they're under pressure, have positive EPA, and that's Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. And so when you talk about a guy who's able to make plays or at least not hurt his team when under pressure, not put himself, that's what you thought Baker Mayfield would do. Would see the pressure, run around, freak out, and throw it. It's not who he is this year. So that's what's helped the Buccaneers stay in games with the abysmal run game.
More with Sam coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. But first, I have to tell you that Locked On Bucs is brought to you today by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. So you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you are hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy for you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode of Locked On Bucs also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and they are the easiest and most exciting way to play DFS. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros, including sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and then watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. And Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. And Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. So go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, and you'll get a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use promo code LockedOnNFL, all lowercase, for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Thanks again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or your first view today and every day. Everydayers, thank you again for coming through on a regular basis like you do. Football season is here, and Locked On is kicking up our coverage with Locked On NFL Live, NFL Kickoff Live. Each Friday, Locked On will go live at 2 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On NFL YouTube channel, and your three hosts are going to break down every game on the NFL schedule for the weekend to get you ready for your team's matchup, your fantasy lineups, your betting angles, and more. Plus, you'll get in-depth local analysis from our stable of NFL hosts across the country who know these teams better than anyone else. Find Locked On NFL Kickoff Live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern on any Locked On NFL YouTube channel. Prime Video Thursday Night Football analytics expert Sam Schwartzstein joining us here on Locked On Bucs. Find him on Twitter at Schwartzstein as well. And I love what you said there, Sam, about Baker, because, I mean, you're 100% right. That was kind of the MO of Baker Mayfield coming into this thing, is that, you know, sometimes he's going to help you, but a lot of times he's also going to hurt you. And Buccaneers fans kind of had their fill of that with Jameis Winston for 5 years. And I don't think Baker was ever to that level necessarily anyway. But certainly I think he's 30
interceptions, 30 touchdowns of the season. What a roller coaster that must have been as a Bucs fan.
Oh, it was a lot of fun. I mean, fun is an interesting way to put it, but at least it definitely provided opportunities to have plenty of conversations. We'll put it that way. And Baker Mayfield certainly, I think, has been better than most people expected. Did have the interception last week, but I think in the totality of the game, that's just one more thing that stacks on to all the other things that kind of went wrong and the opportunities that the Buccaneers really wasted. Speaking of opportunities they wasted, the defense, I already kind of mentioned it, 3 takeaways against the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, you know, granted, some of those takeaways were deep in their end, so you kind of don't want them to come there anyway. But the bottom line is 3 takeaways, you should be able to win. I mean, the Washington Commanders had 3 takeaways against Falcons, were able to come away with a win. So that certainly should be a recipe for success, right? How does this defense in total measure up across the NFL?
So they clearly have a strong identity. They're going to want to blitz, and that's been Todd Bowles forever. I saw a great number out in one of the local newspapers that there's been 15 sacks by 15 different pass rush combinations. So as a former offensive lineman, you're trying to identify which players are going to blitz, what are you going to do? And you have to build out your entire package based on how we're going to pick up the Todd Bowles exotic blitzes. And you know they're going to be game planned. It's not, you know, when you watch Wink Martindale's defense, it's like, okay, I know what their flavor of the week's going to be. Oh, I know they're going to try and do this. Todd Bowles has some stuff where the back end coverage, you don't really know. You can't really tell. A simple one will be a safety will play over the top of the corner. So it looks like 2 guys are stacked on top of one wide receiver. Yeah. The Buccaneers don't do that. They'll let a guy play the middle of the field and then still blitz a corner. So it's really hard from that perspective. And then they're going to force you to pass. So they don't have one of the best pass defenses, and it's because they stack the box. They have the highest percent stacked box rate, meaning they have one more defender than the offense has in the box because they want to force you to pass. And they're going to try and play the game on those takeaways. Like you said, they had a game they should have won. It came down to a last-second field goal. They should have won, and the defense did enough to get there. They just need to be – they're focused on these explosive plays on offense that's going to have to bring them. So – pass defense not great there, but one of the best rush defenses, and it's because they're committed to stopping the rush. But if they're going to get 3 turnovers, the offense has got to pick it up and play. That's why it's the best ultimate team sport, because you never know what's going to happen on those games. And it's huge for the Buccaneers to have Todd Bowles calling plays.
Yeah, I mean, look, Todd Bowles, you know, I think it's kind of a weird dynamic because I think around the Buccaneers and in the fan base and even in media circles, like Todd Bowles, the defensive coordinator, I think everybody loves him. Todd Bowles, the head coach. Sometimes there are some decisions that are made that are kind of head scratching and all those other things. And I think it's hard for a lot of people to remember that he took this job kind of mid off season last year, right? So he didn't have the opportunity to build his staff, really formulate his plan for the roster. So this is almost like his first season, but in everybody's brain, it's his second season. So it's kind of hard to kind of push that aside and let that go. But there's been 2 linebackers on this roster, right? Lavonte David and Devin White that a lot of people are really familiar with. And I was kind of curious from your standpoint, because obviously you're covering different NFL teams every single week and all those things. But there's been this long running thing about Lavonte David from the Buccaneers circle that he doesn't get near the credit he deserves on a national scale. What are your thoughts on Lavonte David? I don't know if you have any data that you could pull up. Cook, I know I didn't really give this one to you earlier, so that's on me. But is Lavonte David really as underappreciated on the national scene as we around the Buccaneers think he is, or is that just maybe the underdog mentality being a little angsty?
Let me tell you a little. I got Lavonte stats for you. In high school, I played a nationally broadcast game where Miami Northwestern came to Texas to play against me. and there were 10 players on Miami Northwestern team that were going Division I, and 9 of them were going to play for the University of Miami. Lavonte David was not on my radar at all that game until I saw him line up across from me. And now I'm talking about football. He's still playing football all those years later, right? He JUCO before going to Nebraska, and he's been underrated his entire career. I think he's had a few years where he's been led the NFL in tackles, maybe top 5. And then Devin White has not been the same player since the Super Bowl. I mean, you can watch that. There are some – if you want to get a highlight tape as an offensive lineman, you're going to go find Devin White before plays because he's the kind of guy that will let you do that. Now, he's had moments of brilliance as well. But Lavonte David is one of the most consistent players. I don't have the stat data up in front of me right now, but I think he's been one of the best at these hustle stops, which is traveling over 20 yards to make a tackle. Yeah. And he's been great at that. What he does is so well is there's so much of the Todd Bowles defense is letting guys freelance, and he's the one who has to make everyone right. Oftentimes he'll be the last line defense when you bring an extra linebacker, extra DB up into the box. You don't have that third line defense in the run game. He has to make everyone right, whether he's playing sideline to sideline, extra spots in coverage. But he to me, he's one of the guys, and you see what he does showing up to his teammates, Pee-wee or high school football games, his kids' high school football games, all those different things that he does as a leader on the team has been impressive. And to be able to have the longevity at the position he plays has been impressive.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, this is a guy who's definitely at the tail end of his career, maybe the last year of his career. That's what a lot of us think and fear, unfortunately, that this is probably the last season. And I mean, we think that he's still right up there with the best of them. He's going to have a challenge on his hands, right? Him and his teammates, they got the Buffalo Bills this Thursday night on Prime Video. They're going up to Western New York to take on those Buffalo Bills. And they're going to be upset emotionally, right? Because they just came off of an ugly loss themselves. So they're going to be looking to get right. What does this matchup look like from the numbers standpoint ahead of Thursday night?
Yeah, everyone's trying to figure out what's wrong with Josh Allen, but when you look at his analytics, he's been playing pretty amazingly. He's top 5 in almost every analytic from CPOE, which is completion percentage over expected, which again, another average. How much are you doing versus the average player in similar situations? He's finding open targets. He hasn't been running as much, right? That's been his issue. So what I expect him to do is, hey, maybe we're going to come out this short week and we're going to go back to what we did last year. Try and control the clock a little bit more. But offensively, this is still an amazing Buffalo Bills team. Defensively, feast or famine. In their wins, they have 7 interceptions. In their losses, they have 1. So their focus is how can we make this game volatile? Volatile meaning how do we get those big plays on defense? Because we're not going to get the consistent stops that we need to as a defense. This is not the same defense. And it's because they're missing important players, right? Matt Milano out, Tre'Davious White out. You lose some captains, you lose some superstars. Here's the number one analytic I like to use. It's not that hard. The highest percent, if your team's salary cap plays on the field, you will go to the playoffs. It's almost if your team, the highest percent of the salary cap that plays, you will go to the playoffs because it's a really hard game to when you're paying guys a lot of money and then they don't play, you don't get to replace them with an equal or as good a player. They're getting a minimum roster player. And that's what the Buffalo Bills are right now is they don't have those guys. So if you by being able to have 2 number 1 wide receiver options in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, the guy who Tre'Davious White was supposed to cover, you have to lean on that player. That player has to step up. This is their week to feast because you can use your offense to manipulate one-on-one matchups for guys like that. Or if you can't, if the Bills say, hey, this team can't run the ball, we're going to double both outsides, play cover 2 the whole time, then your running game has to find a way to step up.
Yeah, so I mean that's smarter, more efficient, if you want to call it that, more protective Baker Mayfield. That's going to be key Thursday night, right, against the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of the run game, I mean that thing is something. I mean this is the second year we've been talking about the Buccaneers trying to fix that run game. Is there any kind of I don't know if it's a floor or like a left or right margin that the Buccaneers have to get into numbers wise to beat the Buffalo Bills? Is there any kind of trend that the Buffalo Bills have showed as far as giving up rushing yards that teams have to do X amount of rushes or X amount of yards to have some success there?
I won't say that. I'll lean less on those volume metrics, right? Because you don't want to, there's that fun with numbers stat. If you have 25 or more rushes, you win the game 80% of the time. So then it's like, why not start the game with 25 rushes? I'm guaranteed to win. Well, enjoy your 21-0 start of the game, right? What I will say is they have to be average.
Mm-hmm.
They are on an average running back would get 1 more yard per carry, just an average player. And they're starting further and further back. They have some of the most hits in the backfield. And Rachaad White is the slowest running back to the line of scrimmage. Whether that's they're running way too many draws, or they're running duo, which is the old school Bruce Arians running play where double teams across the board, just try and make the linebacker choose, and the running back reads off the middle linebacker. Yeah. The best rushing teams in the NFL are ones with unique schemes. They're doing crazy motions in the backfield because there's no way you're going to manhandle defensive linemen in the NFL anymore. There's no way you can just say our double teams are going to get up to the linebacker. You need to get those guys running the opposite ways. So what I want to see from the offense is let's run some unique stuff. I know it's a short week, but let's install some special plays, some trick plays to try and be able to get to the edge or trying to make so these linebackers haven't seen something unique. It is a short week, but it's also a short week for your opponent. Right. Try and install some unique things to make yourself at least put in a different situation, because what you're doing right now is not enough. It's not average at all.
Still got more coming with Sam Schwartzstein, the Thursday Night Football analytics expert for Amazon Prime, coming up on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. And this episode of Locked On Bucs brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry where you are buying your tickets from for your next big event. You shouldn't have to worry about the ticket buying process at all. Game Time is the fastest and the easiest way to buy sports tickets, music tickets, comedy tickets, and theater tickets near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You can get yourself some great seats and take your kid to a hockey game coming up, or keep scoping out those perfect seats for the Foo Fighters next year, since tickets this year were gone before you even had a chance to blink. Or you get top last-minute deals that Game Time has, along with flash deals, zone deals, any tickets you want to find in your area. It's easy to do on Game Time. Plus, you can see the view from your seat, so you know what you're getting into before you arrive. And with Game Time's best price guarantee, if you find the same section and same row ticket for the same event for a lesser price, they will give you 110% of the difference of the prices. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL, and you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Prime Video Thursday Night Football analytics expert Sam Schwartzstein joining us here on Locked On Bucs. Find him as well on Twitter at Schwartzstein's off. Obviously, if you've been watching Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime, you're seeing him on the broadcast, and hopefully you're watching the Prime Vision broadcast with Next Gen Stats. My co-host James Yarcho, he's adamantly said that is the best way to watch football if you're going to watch it from television. And I got to say, I enjoy it every Thursday night as well. So Sam, some questions behind the scenes, right? So how does this work in real time? Like how do you guys have this information? Because I mean, you guys, I see the highlights and the bubble, is it bubble guys, do you call them, where you put orbs. The circles around the certain guy. There you go, the orbs, that was the word. And you put them around the certain guys, but then like a play happens and boom, you pop up on the screen and you're saying, here, this is why this was important. And it's just like a next level way of watching football. How does this work in real time to get that information out to people?
Yeah. Amazon committed to this before I even got to Amazon. They wanted to find a way to show the hidden game of football, whether that was through the all 22 camera angle. But we have our bespoke camera for this broadcast that we're able to show all 22 in high definition. And that to me is just table stakes for how to watch the game uniquely. And then you add in the graphics to help you identify where certain players are in those scenarios. And then we add in our logic on top, so we're able to see if a player is more than likely going to convert a first down. They light up with a green orb. And then we add a machine learning layer, which is having an AI predict which players are likely to blitz. Not tell you which players will blitz, but who's the quarterback watching. And so we have a team that is on site. We have a team that's in LA, and we're doing everything in real time, whether we're taking the normal feed that you're seeing from the game. And then once you're coming to the play at line set, you'll see what we have in real time. All of our we'll switch the camera angle to that, and then you'll have all those graphics. Sometimes you'll see defensive focus graphics. Sometimes you'll see our machine learning driven field goal target lines. Better understand the game. And it's been a commitment from Amazon, from Jay Marine, Jared Stacy, Betsy Riley, Alex Strand, all the way down to our producer, Josh Friedenberg and Scott Carpin. We have a commitment to try and show this game in a unique way. And then one of my favorite things is we don't have the same show week to week. We will change things on the fly. It's not sometimes when you're watching games, primetime games, like, oh, these are kind of all like the same type of game now. You'll never see the same thing. Last week I was super excited when we launched a simple indicator when Taysom Hill would be on the field. He lit up with a white orb, right? Because we know he's a unique player. And every week we'll have new ideas, and some things we'll like, and then some things we'll get rid of. Not everything works. So I think it's been super fun. There's a large team working on this both here and overseas to be able to help give like the best broadcast that we can to our audience.
No, and it's really cool, man. Like I'll be honest, the first week I watched it, I really didn't know what to expect. I hadn't read up a whole lot on it. I just kind of like, I'll check this out. And I mean, it was cool. Like just as a football geek, like it was really cool. My son came down actually at one point and said, "Oh man, like the video games look really realistic these days." And I was like, this is kind of like a blend of like the video game, culture and like in football, and it's just next level. And now that I'm used to it, it's really fun to see the new wrinkles. And I remember the Taysom Hill thing. And, I think it's interesting because like you said, like that, like defenses also are looking for Taysom Hill because he's such a wild card when the Saints put him on the field. It kind of teaches people how to watch the game. That's one of the first things I had to really kind of learn getting into my business is don't just watch the ball, right? Like there's a lot going on around the football. Don't just watch the ball. And I think you guys are doing a great job of helping fans kind of get to that next level of football intelligence as well. But, guys like me, my co-host James Yarcho, I love James. He knows I love him, but we're both geeks with microphones, right? But you're not just a geek with a whiteboard or what. You've got a football background. So tell everybody, just in case they don't already know kind of what your background is and how you got from where you were in football life to where you are today.
Yeah, so I played football in Texas. Texas high school football, like the whole Friday Night Lights thing, like didn't realize that was not the norm when I got to Stanford. I had more people at high school games often than not than I did at Stanford. Then I played at Stanford first year there, 2008. And then from there on, I was on the Orange Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, and I was captain of the Rose Bowl championship team. So really got to see it grow, play with guys like Andrew Luck and David DeCastro, Chase Thomas, Shane Schoaf, just some superstar players that came through Stanford. And then we had probably my time there, probably 12 of the coaches I had became pro or college head coaches. So Vic Fangio was my defensive coordinator, kind of when he got to reinvent himself as a coordinator. So it was great time there. And then I started working in tech. I had a tryout with the Chargers. They said football wasn't for you. And I said, okay. Tom Telesco I was Tom Telesco's first cut, and now he's a good friend of mine in the business. So
that's
then flash forward, I've been working in tech and building out products. And then when Oliver Luck took over the XFL, he had me come on to redo the rule book, but from a product development standpoint. So I was data-driven working in tech, but I had played football at a high level. And so let me break down the NFL rule book from a product development standpoint. So we had a build, test, repeat. Everything was data-driven. We tested everything. And so I built the player compensation model, the on-field rules, and the on-field technology for the XFL in 2020. A lot of the rules they still use today, a lot of the tech that they still use, and some teams are now incorporating into how they practice. So it's been fun being able to kind of blend my passions together of technology and football. To hopefully, and again, I'm passionate about teaching football. You talking about being able to use our stream to learn football. That's kind of the whole focus is, everyone kind of knows the basics of football before they come to our stream. Hey, how many players on the field? But now being able to see where the quarterback's eyes or where the defensive eyes needs to be, that's kind of how we're giving you. Yes, it's great we give you all 22, but sometimes you don't know where to put your eyes versus the traditional broadcast. It's focused on the ball. So what we do is we provide a guided viewing experience by being able to give you those different features to say, hey, here's where your eyes should be.
Yeah, and it's really cool, man. And it works really great. So anybody out there who hasn't checked out the Prime Video Thursday Night Football broadcast, you definitely need to get in on that. If you're a football fan, you're going to really enjoy it. And of course, that Prime Video view of it with the next gen stats, Prime Vision with next gen stats is awesome as well. Sam Schwartzstein, I can't thank you enough for giving us your time and for coming through here. It's been a blast. On Twitter at Schwartzsteins. I'll tell you what, I saw you tweet something about the challenge rules and how it's the coaches doing the officials' jobs for them. We can't get into it on this episode, but I would 100% agree with you. So if you are on Twitter, make sure you check that tweet out and everything else going on. Sam, greatly appreciate your time, brother. Hope to have you on soon again.
No problem. This was fun.
Coming up tomorrow, WTSP Wednesday, we will be back. James will be back, Locked On Bucs. In the meantime, if you've got questions, leave them in the chat, YouTube comments, email them lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com, or hit us each up on Twitter. James is at @JYarcho_Bucks. I am at DHarrison82. Again, we want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or review today and every day. Every dayers, we want to thank you again for coming through on a regular basis like you do. Until we speak again, please be safe, be kind, fire your own cannons, and we'll see you next time for another episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.